Blackwood, a town draped in perpetual twilight, even under the brightest sun. The air hung heavy with the weight of unspoken secrets, the silence broken only by the rustle of dead leaves skittering down deserted streets. Towering above the town, on a hill shrouded in perpetual mist, stood Blackwood Asylum. A brooding monolith of crumbling stone and shattered windows, it stood as a testament to the town's dark past. The asylum, once a beacon of hope for the mentally ill, had become a festering wound in the town's psyche. It was a place of whispers and shadows where the tormented echoes of the past lingered in the present. Locals spoke of the asylum with a mixture of fear and reverence, their voices hushed as if afraid to attract unwanted attention. The very air around the asylum seemed to crackle with an unseen energy, a palpable sense of dread that settled upon anyone foolish enough to venture too close. It was a place where reason faltered, and the line between reality and nightmare blurred. A place where the legend of the whispering child held sway. The whispering child. Her name was a whisper itself, passed down through generations of Blackwood residents like a dark inheritance. The mere mention of her name would send shivers down the spines of those who dared to speak it aloud. A name that carried with it the weight of countless untold horrors. She was not a figment of overactive imaginations, but a chilling reality. A malevolent entity forever bound to the asylum's decaying walls. The asylum, once a place of supposed healing, had become her eternal prison, a place where her sorrow and rage festered and grew. The story of her origin was a tragic tapestry woven from sorrow, madness, and a mother's desperate love. It was a tale that began in the darkest corners of the human heart, where love and loss intertwine to create something truly monstrous. They say she was once a patient herself, a young mother driven to insanity by the loss of her child. Her grief was a palpable thing, a shadow that clung to her every step, a constant reminder of the life she had lost. The asylum staff, their hearts hardened by years of witnessing such despair, had ignored her pleas, her desperate cries for her baby echoing through the desolate halls. They had become numb to the suffering around them, blind to the pain that had consumed her. Driven to the brink by grief, she had taken her own life, her final breath a whispered promise of vengeance. And vengeance she sought. Her spirit, unable to find peace, lingered in the asylum, her sorrow transforming into a burning rage. Her spirit, twisted and consumed by rage, fused with the essence of the asylum, transforming into something altogether more sinister. She became a part of the very fabric of the building. Her presence felt in every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind. She became the whispering child, her voice a haunting siren's call, luring the unwary to their doom. Her whispers, filled with sorrow and malice, would draw people in, leading them deeper into the asylum's dark embrace. Her powers, born of despair and fueled by the asylum's oppressive energy, were as terrifying as they were mysterious. She could manipulate the very air around her, creating illusions and phantoms that would torment those who dared to enter her domain. Her legacy of sorrow continued, a dark shadow that would forever haunt the halls of the Blackwood Asylum. Room 13. A number that for many is steeped in superstition and fear. But here, in this forsaken asylum, it is more than just a number. It is a harbinger of doom. Even the number sent a shiver down the spines of those brave enough to utter it. It was as if the very mention of Room 13 could summon the malevolent forces that dwelled within. Located in the asylum's most isolated wing, it was a place of palpable darkness, where the air hung thick with the stench of mildew and decay. The walls seemed to close in, suffocating any light that dared to enter. The door, its paint peeling like scabs, bore deep scratches as if clawed by something desperate to escape. These marks told a story of agony and despair, a silent testament to the horrors contained within. Within those walls, the Whispering Child's powers were strongest. Her presence was an oppressive force, a dark cloud that smothered all hope and light. Those unfortunate souls who found themselves trapped within Room 13 were subjected to unimaginable horrors. Their cries for help would go unanswered, swallowed by the room's insatiable hunger for fear. The temperature would plummet, the air growing thin and icy, making it difficult to breathe. It was as if the room itself was alive, feeding off the terror it induced. Whispers, faint at first, would gradually grow louder, swirling around their heads like a vortex of madness. These whispers were not just sounds. They were invasive thoughts, burrowing into the minds of the trapped. The whispers would weave tales of their deepest fears, their darkest secrets, chipping away at their sanity, until all that was left was a hollow shell. Each word was a dagger, each sentence a chain, binding them to their own personal hell. The shadows in the room would writhe and contort, taking on monstrous shapes that seemed to reach out, their cold, spectral fingers brushing against their skin. These shadows were not mere illusions, they were manifestations of the room's malevolent will. Room 13 was a sensory deprivation chamber of the soul, where the Whispering Child revelled in the terror of her victims. It was a place where time lost all meaning, and every second stretched into an eternity of torment. The history of Room 13 was shrouded in mystery and blood. Many had tried to uncover its secrets, but few had returned with their sanity intact. The room's origins were lost to time, but its legacy of horror continued to grow. Paranormal investigators and ghost hunters often spoke of Room 13 in hushed tones, sharing tales of their encounters with the Whispering Child. Their stories were filled with chilling details, each more terrifying than the last. Desperate escape attempts were common, but the room seemed to have a mind of its own, thwarting every effort to leave. The door, once closed, became an impenetrable barrier, sealing the fate of those inside. Legends and folklore grew around Room 13, each tale adding to its fearsome reputation. Some said the room was a portal to another dimension, a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead were blurred. The origin of the Whispering Child was a mystery. Some believed she was the spirit of a young girl who had died tragically within the asylum's walls, her soul forever trapped in a cycle of vengeance and sorrow. The eerie silence of Room 13 was perhaps the most unsettling aspect. It was a silence that seemed to listen, to watch, to wait. It was a silence that promised only one thing: terror. As we leave Room 13, the lingering fear remains, a reminder of the darkness that resides within. It is a place where innocence turns to terror, and where the Whispering Child's legacy continues to haunt those who dare to enter. Years passed, and the Blackwood Asylum stood as a grim reminder of the town's troubled past. Its walls, once echoing with the cries of the tormented, now stood silent, cloaked in an eerie stillness that seemed to whisper secrets of its own. Yet, as with all things forbidden, it exerted a strange pull on the living, especially the young and reckless. The tales of its haunted halls and the mysterious events that transpired within its walls became a magnet for those seeking a thrill, a brush with the unknown. Word of the Whispering Child and her haunted domain spread beyond the town's borders, attracting thrill-seekers and paranormal enthusiasts eager to catch a glimpse of the supernatural. The legend of the Whispering Child, a ghostly figure said to haunt the asylum, grew with each retelling, drawing more and more curious souls to its gates. Among them were 4 teenagers: Jake, the skeptical leader; Maya, the adventurous one drawn to the unknown; Ben, the timid one plagued by nightmares; and Chloe, the quiet observer, harboring a secret fascination with the paranormal. Each had their own reasons for venturing into the asylum, but all were united by a shared desire to uncover the truth behind the legends. They had heard the whispers, the chilling tales of Room 13, and the malevolent entity that resided within. The stories spoke of a room where the air was thick with malevolence, where shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and where the whispering child was said to appear, her voice a haunting melody that chilled the soul. Driven by a mixture of curiosity and youthful bravado, they made a pact to spend a night in the abandoned asylum, to see for themselves if the legends were true. They gathered their courage, each silently wondering if they would regret their decision, but none willing to back down in front of their friends. Armed with flashlights, cameras, and a healthy dose of skepticism, they set off towards the hill, the setting sun casting long, ominous shadows behind them. The path to the asylum was overgrown and treacherous, but their determination pushed them forward, each step bringing them closer to the unknown. They were oblivious to the darkness that awaited them, a darkness that would soon consume them all. As they crossed the threshold of the asylum, the air grew colder, and an unsettling silence enveloped them. The walls seemed to close in, and the shadows danced with a life of their own, hinting at the ominous fate that awaited them within the haunted halls of Blackwood Asylum.